While the rest of the NBA world has hit its pause, taking a break during the NBA All-Star break, Daryl Morey and the Sixers are still focused on improving the Sixers roster. Early Monday morning, we get an update from Shams Charania that the Sixers have signed Darius Bazley to a 10-day contract, the guy that is currently playing on the G League roster. Shams tweets that entering his fifth NBA season, Bazley is coming off a 38 point, 15 rebound, and averaging 21 points per game and 10 rebounds per game on one of the G League's best. So we know I've talked a decent bit about the Sixers current roster, that there are two open roster slots at the bottom half of the roster, and this to me seems essentially like they're giving Darius Bazley a tryout. That he fits to me like a guy that has been too good for the G League. I think the Sixers are well aware of that. That when we speak on this guy, this is a dude who has clocked over 200 games at the NBA level. A bit of a surprise to see him fall back down to the G League ranks, still at 23 years old, and plenty of potential about him. To give kind of the spark notes of who he is as a player, he's a very fluent athlete, 6'9", 6'10", moves really well. He's kind of transitioned and playing more of a small ball center role. There's been opportunities where he's been more of a perimeter-centric player, more in that kind of power forward, maybe fringe small forward kind of space. But lately, he has kind of fallen into playing that small ball center kind of opportunity, and he does present the team the opportunity to run and gun, get a rebound, take the ball up the floor himself. To take a look at his stats at the NBA level, as I mentioned, he's played 228 total games at the NBA level, started at 118 of them, including a handful of games in the playoffs for the Oklahoma City Thunder, but through his career, averaging 9.1 points, 5.3 rebounds, 1.2 assists per game. The three-point is kind of the make-or-break swing scale for him specifically, that through his career, just a 31% three-point shooter on 3.3 three-point attempts. At the time when he was getting the highest volume of three-pointers, this still being during the Oklahoma City Thunder days, that shooting just 29% when launching 5.2 three-point attempts per game. That's just not going to quite cut it at the NBA level. He has seen some flashes, such as during the 22-23 season just last year with the Oklahoma City Thunder, which he shot 40% from three on 1.3 attempts per game, but a pretty small sample size overall. But he has looked really good with the Delaware Bluecoats this year. I can say that even on a night, there was one night I went down there where Terquavion Smith and Ricky Council IV both got the call up to the Sixers, and they were not down there. And it was quite clear that Bazley was the best player on the floor, that being with Kenny Lofton also playing in that matchup. So I will say a little hat tip to them, and it is cool to get him see the opportunity. And I think for Bazley specifically, this is a big moment. This is a pivotal moment in his career, that he has to make the most of this 10-day opportunity. A lot of guys cling on to these 10-day chances, that you make a good amount of money, probably more than he will make for the entirety of the season with the Bluecoats in this 10-day stint with the Sixers as a whole. And if he can grab a hold of this opportunity, show what he can do, this is something that is intriguing for his future potential. And to speak a little bit about the pathway that Darius Bazley has taken to this point, it's a little bit of an interesting one. That looking back at his high school ratings, a highly touted recruit, this coming in the 2018 recruiting class, measuring at 6'9", 200 pounds, he was considered the 18th best recruit according to Rivals, the 23rd best recruit according to 247 Sports, and the 13th best recruit according to ESPN. But 5 stars all across the board, an overall 93 ESPN grade as far as the recruiting goes. He is a guy that elected to take the G League route, despite committing to both Ohio State and Syracuse at different points in times during his high school career. He ultimately signed to take the G League route, go directly to the professional ranks, signed with Rich Paul as his agent. Not a big fan of the Clutch Sports angle. I know I have to swallow it and understand because of the Tyrese Maxey angle here in Philadelphia, but definitely still have that sour taste from the whole Ben Simmons experience and kind of the strong arming that was going on behind the scenes. Rich Paul, one of the most powerful men in all of sports, and has flexed those muscles quite a bit of times. But for Darius Bazley specifically, not quite the top tier rank of clientele that he will hang his hat on, but still a guy worth taking a chance on from the Sixers perspective. And I know we touched on these a little bit, but just to look at what he's done with the Bluecoats this year, in the 18 regular season games that he has played in, 33.6 minutes per game, 20.1 points per game, 9.3 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 1.2 steals and 2.3 blocks, which are significant improvements. Those are things that he's not quite touched on before. The 3-point, once again, is the swing skill and has not shown that much signs of progress. That's shooting 30.8% on 4.3 3-point attempts per game this year. That is not quite something that is going to get the job done. And I am curious. That definitely changes his ceiling as a player, and I'm curious if that is motivating the shift into this small ball center role. If he wants to use the advantage of being a guy that can outrun and outgun guys, he's not nearly in the same caliber of player as this, but as far as the archetype of stylistic player he plays like, I kind of throw him in a little bit of a mix of a Pascal Siakam and PJ Washington, just in terms of you get the qualities of a guy that is a small ball center at times, and particularly more speaking to the Pascal angle here. Bazley's not a guy that's good enough to do the face-up options, to create his own shot, all these things. He is a little bit more of the P.J. Washington, that he can catch lobs. He's very capable as a lob catcher, and that's something that's very intriguing to me. And when we speak on the Sixers team as a whole, there is a need for that style of player. They're looking at the Sixers depth chart as it currently stands. We know how desperate they are without Joel Embiid for some productive big man minutes. B-Ball Paul leading the charge at center, and he's played very well in the stints, particularly without Joel Embiid. And just a quick note on that I think overall, the just context of the conversations around Paul Reed has been more negative than it should be. That myself and I think a lot of people were hoping for him to take that next step. Now they did ink the contract this offseason to maybe develop into this guy that could play alongside Joel Embiid and be the guy that does the dirty work. And it's a similar way to what PJ Tucker did last year, but obviously far more size and athleticism with Paul Reed. I was hoping to see a little bit of that, and especially with Nick Nurse speaking in the offseason about playing Paul Reed and Joel Embiid together. That just has not quite happened, and I do think we're holding that a little bit more of an indictment on Paul than it should be. That the clearest reason that he is here is to be a backup center to Joel Embiid, and he's done a pretty damn good job of that, especially in the absence of Joel Embiid. That game-winning block against the Cavs was awesome. Also played terrific against Nikola Jokic during that Nuggets matchup. There's been some highs for Paul Reed, far more than I think has been recognized, and I think with the expectation going into this year, we're being a little bit hard on Paul overall. But looking beyond that, Mo Bamba is a guy that has had his ups and downs as well. There is Kenny Lofton Jr., who still will be in the mix, continues to be on a two-way contract there. And then it's some small ball options. Guys like KJ Martin, even Nico Batum could get the opportunity there when looking specifically at the center spot. I also think there's a world where Bazley gets an opportunity in that power forward role. That KJ Martin in the second string, Nico Batum, who's missed plenty of time already playing that power forward role. Tobias Harris, we'll see what the situation is with his injury returning from the break. Kelly Oubre Jr., not a guy I love in that power forward opportunity. So there is some minutes to be had if Bazley can perform up to the challenge there. And I once again, I love the athleticism that he brings. I love having the concept of a lob-catching presence on this Sixers team. For a couple years now, that has been something that lacked. This specific Sixers team has much more of that than we've seen in years past. Guys like Kelly Oubre can do it. KJ Martin is phenomenal at it. Ricky Council IV would love to bring the house down. So there is a great deal of more athleticism, and for me, that's more than just outshining guys when it comes to, being quicker off the bounce, being able to jump higher. There's just another element that you can add to your offense. So you can swing these backdoor cuts, throw it up for a guy, and get it where the defense can't reach it, and that's just an easy source of 2 points. And for Bazley specifically, this has been a guy that the Sixers have had their eye on. This is rare to me that I've seen this. The Sixers went out and got him to bring him onto the G League roster. That this summer, the reigning G League champions, being the Delaware Bluecoats, stay active. The Sixers announced Friday night that the Delaware Bluecoats have traded for Darius Bazley in exchange for a 2024 first-round G League draft pick. They've put out the official announcement saying, "Welcome to Delaware, Darius," and making it official that the Delaware Bluecoats acquire the rights to Darius Bazley from the Wisconsin Herd in exchange for a 2024 first-round pick. The article goes on to say that Bazley, 23 years old, was a first-round pick in 2019, taken 23rd, and playing in his first 4 seasons with the Oklahoma City Thunder. He was dealt to the Phoenix Suns at last year's trade deadline for former Sixer Darius Bazley. He signed with the Nets over the summer but failed to make the team in training camp before signing with the Bucks affiliate Wisconsin Herd. It's rare to me that I see a team make that type of move just to add to their G League roster. And even at the time, this perked my ears up a little bit, confused that, frankly, this was even as possible as it is. But the fact that it is that the Sixers went out and got this guy. And I do think for Bazley, it's another sign of adding talent, another sign of adding depth, and another just clear indicator of the Sixers maintaining activity and trying to build this roster up to the best that it can be. He is an NBA talent. He is a guy that is capable of producing at that level, and we've seen it already. I understand it was not on the winning teams, and this was being on the before the Oklahoma City Thunder got as good as they did, that this was more in the bottom feeder era of that team. But still, he's a guy that is an NBA athlete. He's worth taking a chance on, and this constant effort to improving the roster is something that is a positive for me. I hope Bazley takes advantage of the situation. I am a believer in his talent as a whole. I like his skill set as a whole. There are still some things that leave me wanting more, but this is the right opportunity to take a chance on him. There's no real risk by handing him the 10-day contract. If things don't work, if he doesn't look as good as you're hoping, you simply cut ties at the end, send him back down the G League, and look for that next opportunity. But maybe he does come in and take advantage. Maybe you ink him to a second 10-day, and maybe all of a sudden, okay, this dude looks like he could be an NBA talent for the long haul. He's an option we want on his team. this is smart business decision. This is a smart situation that the Sixers are putting themselves in, and now they can just kind of sit back, see what Bazley truly has at the NBA stage, and see if he just may be one of those guys that have fallen through the cracks in the NBA world, which happens all too often for a lot of guys. So shout out to Darius Bazley for getting the opportunity, for keeping his head down and working. Shout out to Daryl Morey for taking a chance on this guy. We will see how he looks back at the NBA stage, but I am excited to see how it translates once again and for him to get an opportunity in a Sixers uniform. Thank you for you guys for tuning into this video specifically. Drop your comments on what you think of Darius Bazley. If there's any other names that you have out there that you would have preferred. Once again, this is not a long-term commitment, so they absolutely could cut ties after the 10-day expires. We will see what happens from there. But make sure you guys are smashing the subscribe to the channel. Keep the Sixers Digest family growing. Drop a like on this video, and I'll be talking with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.